And away we go. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Fox Sports The Gambler. This is Picks and Roll. My name is Sean Barnard with Sam Oshtry here. We are in the dead of the NBA offseason, but kind of the busiest time to an extent. The news is flowing, the rumors are still flying, and we have some live basketball to break down as NBA Summer League is underway. And there may not have been a better NBA Summer League debut that I've seen from a Sixers player than what we got from our guy, VJ Edgecombe. So excited to dive into all of that. But before we do, Sam, how we doing, my guy? How's the holiday weekend?
I'm great. Holiday weekend was awesome. July 4th, always great. Always my favorite holiday. Like just the best holiday of the year, hands down. Never have a bad July 4th ever. Good beach time, fireworks, little beach bar down the shore. So great July 4th. Great July 4th, but I'm ready to get back into it.
I love to hear it. Love to hear it. And with that, with the holidays behind us, the NBA season already undertaking. So I'll got to get, before I wax poetically about my thoughts on VJ Edgecombe, did you have any key takeaways from VJ or any thoughts on Summer League to lead off the bat with?
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredibly impressive debut. Like, let's just start with that. 28 points, 10 boards, 4 assists. Yep. But really, what like I saw from him is stuff that I didn't even see from his tape at Baylor necessarily, where his explosiveness and athleticism, all that was on display at Baylor. But this was a whole new level. And Summer League's it's very similar competition to college. Like a lot of those guys are former college players or guys who are around the college G League level. So it's similar competition to what you see in college. It's not really what you're going to see in the NBA. And also, it's more like a pickup run than a structured game because there's very little practice time before those guys go and play together. So there's not as much game planning, not as much sets and offenses and schemes that you're running and stuff of that nature. So it's very much a pickup run. And when you get a guy as athletic as VJ Edgecombe in a pickup run setting, he is impossible to guard. I mean, there's nobody on the floor who could stay in front of him. He was awesome in transition, which we know he's great, and most athletes are good in transition. But he's also really good in secondary transition. Where necessarily the Sixers had an advantage, but it was more like the defense was running back. And it was like they were on their heels a little bit, and VJ Edgecombe just got downhill every time, finished well around the rim, operated well in the mid-range. We know his hang time is just absurd, how he attacks closeouts, constantly makes the right decisions, plays the right ways, made great defensive plays with his athleticism. The one thing was his three ball still wasn't there, 1 for 7 from 3, which is something everyone knew coming in. He has to develop a better shot. I don't love how his shot looks. Like, it almost looks like he's shooting with 2 hands. Yeah. And so I think that's something hopefully the Sixers will develop with their shooting coach. But other than that, like, it was just an incredible debut. I mean, how he got to the rim, how he attacked the basket, finished around the rim, operated in the mid-range. This was everything we thought that the Sixers were getting with the number 3 pick. And he put it all on display in his Summer League debut.
Yeah, no, 100% there. And to set the ground rules here, how you watch Summer League here is if the performance confirms your initial takes or your expectations here, then you're 100% right. If it looks different, then it's just Summer League. Exactly. And does not matter.
Because we've never seen Summer League all-time Summer League performances respond with dud careers in the NBA and vice versa.
Yeah, I remember just 2 years ago when Victor Wembanyama couldn't hang in the Summer League and people were ready to get off.
He couldn't handle the physicality of the NBA because he had a bad Summer League debut.
Yeah, but the point being here, it is still Summer League. But with that said, that is the most impressive debut I've seen from a Sixers Summer League player in this era. Better than Ben Simmons, better than Joel Embiid, better than Markelle Fultz, better than Evan Turner. You can run down the list of like all these high-profile players that were brought in. VJ looked as game ready as we've seen. The athleticism just pops off the entire screen, man. Like when he gets his head down in transition, the one play where he had the block on Springer on the defensive end, then goes immediately down, gets an and one. It's just like absurd stuff there. And the biggest thing that stood out to me about VJ Edgecombe, he's fearless, man. He is not afraid whatsoever. He made 5 mid-range jumpers in that game. He made 13 mid-range jumpers his entire time at Baylor. Like, that is some absurd stuff. And I love that he kind of took it personally of like, I am the guy here. I'm expected to be the dude running the show, leading this team. And that's exactly what he did. Obviously, there was a cool storyline with the head-to-head with Ace Bailey, and it did make me quite satisfied to watch Ace struggle a little bit. I didn't think he was like god-awful in the way that I think some people are talking about it, but he certainly has some catching up to the NBA speed of play or, decision-making process. I thought he overpassed in kind of an intentional way. Probably as one of those, I'll prove to people I can pass now. But if you were to tell me one of these guys shot the ball 27 times in these games between Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe, I would have guessed ace 10 times out of 10 there, but I love that VJ took that personally, and honestly could not be more impressed from what we saw from him in day one.
Ace Bailey was 3 for 13, 1 for 5 from 3, while VJ Edgecombe was
13 of 27, I believe.
13 of 27, which 27 is a ton of shots. But the thing about his three ball you talk about, which you just said it with those numbers in the mid-range, where he only had 13 mid-range jumpers this entire season at Baylor and had 5 yesterday. I was really impressed with that. But going back to his confidence in his jumper, not just off the dribble, he was really confident in his three ball. I just said I don't like how it looks necessarily, and he struggled shooting it. He never wavered in his confidence in his three ball off the dribble and off the catch in that debut. So you want to see you don't ever want a player to lose confidence in his three ball. And even if he's not a great shooter and has to improve that area, especially because he's been playing more off the ball than we saw from his summer league debut, where he was the primary ball handler a lot. You still want to see a guy remain confident in his three ball as it develops.
They've made him play a lot of primary ball handler and basically point guard for a good stretch of that game. I think that is probably just a developmental tactic. Like, let's get him as much live defense on him and improve that handle. I love the handle for all that has been made about it. Like, looked pretty solid to me. It's not, he's not Kyrie Irving and won't be that, but like he's absolutely a passable guard dribbler in the NBA. But what was your thoughts about like specifically those weaknesses that we had concern? And from a positional fit standpoint, do you see a world where he slots in that point guard role, or do you think this is just purely a developmental tactic here?
Yeah, I mean, he should serve that role with this roster on this summer league team when he's playing alongside Tyrese Maxey. I don't think so. I don't think he'll serve that role, but it is and especially we'll talk about Quentin Grimes, but assuming Quentin Grimes is there, Quentin Grimes can also play a lot of a primary ball handler, which what we saw from the Sixers last year, even Jared McCain. So just based on how those guys slide, I don't really trust VJ as a rookie to slide into that role. And he also thrived off ball at Baylor. Like we saw how good he was playing off ball, attacking closeouts when his shot was falling, and just as an absurd athlete. So I'm not really concerned about that stuff at all. I think he will be playing way more off ball. They're not really going to give him on ball reps that much just because of the depth in the backcourt. In terms of the ball handling thing, like in transition, his athleticism just carries him where it doesn't even matter. Like he takes 2 strides and he's at the rim, blows by his defender. He's not the greatest ball handler like with his handles like a Kyrie is, but he doesn't have to be because athleticism just can beat guys off the dribble so quickly, especially in transition, even when they don't in the secondary break too. When I talked about earlier, when they get this, when it's a secondary break, it's not a full transition possession, the defense is back, but they're on their heels. He just takes advantage of any defender on his heels. So good at attacking the top foot. His athleticism in his first step burst is unbelievable. And that's not like a summer league college thing. That will translate immediately to the NBA because he's already that good of an athlete. So I think that was our whole thing leading up to this draft process is when you're an athlete that great, there's no question that you're going to translate into the NBA immediately, even if you hit some rookie bumps along the way. And that's why he was the most ready player for the Sixers to draft.
Yeah, I said in the pre-draft process a ton that I thought from day one in the NBA, he was going to be like a top 15th percentile athlete. I think I might have undershot that a little bit.
You did undershoot that.
He's going to be even more higher on that list than I expected. Do you have any crazy player comps you want to throw out? Because I got one that I have to get off my chest before.
You go. Let me react to yours.
I don't take this as him as the basketball player purely.
Oh, okay. Wait. Before you even say the person, I wish you actually listen to that comp when I do it with Derek Queen and Jokic, listen to that sentiment when I do it with Derek Queen and Jokic. But that's a conversation for another day.
Well, all right. I'll circle back.
You're about to say someone crazy. I know you are.
VJ Edgecombe moves like Michael Jordan. I know he's not Michael Jordan as a basketball player yet and probably ever, but watch the way they glide, the way that the movement, the athleticism, the package and frame. I really see some remnants of that.
Well, so you texted me Anthony Edwards, which is where I thought you were going to go with that. And the reason Anthony Edwards is obviously not Michael Jordan, but the reason Anthony Edwards gets these comparisons to Michael Jordan from a lot of people is just because of the way what you're talking about with how he operates in the mid-range, his footwork, how he glides, his athleticism. So is that a crazy comparison? Yes, it's absolutely absurd. He is not going to be Anthony Edwards and definitely not going to be Michael Jordan. But in terms of the athleticism, I do get it.
Yeah, I don't expect him to turn into Michael Jordan, although I would love it to be wrong about this here. But that just purely from the way that he moves, the package of size, athleticism, frame, and again, like the way that he glides really just pops me. I think he's cut from that same cloth, and it's a pretty damn good cloth to be cut from there. So pretty thrilled about that. Any thoughts on the Derek Queen that you want to wrap up here? We have not seen him in Summer League yet. I believe he's exclusive to playing in Vegas. I don't think they're in Salt Lake City, right?
No, they're not.
The reason that I think my comparison is slightly different, like I just see the vision from that. We still have not seen it from Derek Queen that he can play make like that.
We really want to do this again? Look, I don't have any wrap up thoughts because everyone knows how I feel about Derek Queen and the trade. A lot of people will be eating their words based off that trade if Derek Queen turns into an all-star. And that's why I defended the trade, and that's why we continue to defend the trade from the Pelicans' perspective, because I think Derek Queen is that good. And everyone knows how I feel about Derek Queen at this point. He has all-star potential, and I think we're going to actually see that materialize when he forget the Summer League, because I don't really care that much about the Summer League, but when he actually plays in the NBA and plays for the Pelicans. But just some final thoughts on the Sixers game. I was really impressed with Adam Bona, too.
Yes.
Like, I thought he was awesome just as a finisher around the rim and as a rebounder. And I was impressed with his screen setting, too. I mean, he sets really hard screens that freeze open guys. And when you talk about the Sixers' front court depth, they're going to need Adam Bona. He's going to play real rotational minutes for this team. And I thought he had a pretty good Summer League game as well.
Yeah, 100% there. For starters, he looks even bigger and stronger to me. Every time that he got Filipowski, like in a chance there, his mind just went weight room. Like, I can put this guy in the stanchion here. And he did. He was successful with that there. They also bought on like the pump fake 3 to him attacking. I don't understand why anyone would be biting on an Edembo and a 3-point attempt.
Well, he learned it from the best.
Yeah, it's a Joel move. It's 100%.
Embiid is the best at that. And it's like you always want to give him that shot, and it's such a slow-moving pump fake, but it catches the defender every time.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. That is straight from Joel's playbook. But the number one thing that I'll compliment Bona on, he did get 8 fouls. Like, he was not perfect here. He still has things.
Wait, do you know how many fouls it takes to foul out in the Summer League?
It's 10, right?
It's 10. It's just absurd. I think it's only happened once, actually, where someone actually fouled out of a Summer League game with 10 fouls. It's pretty funny watching them just have no regard for the foul trouble, because you could foul 10 times if you want to. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, Adam Bona will never play. Like, he can use his fouls in the NBA. Right. I don't have a problem with that with the Sixers rotation, because he's not going to be playing hefty minutes where it'll be a troublesome thing for the Sixers if he's in foul trouble.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I always thought there was way too much made about the Paul Reed foul trouble, because to me, if your max is you're playing 18 to 20 minutes, if you want to use all 5 of your fouls across that time, I have zero problem with that. And I think that's going to be the situation with Bona. But the number one thing that stood out to me, he just looks so much more intentional with his movements across the floor here. Like last year, there was a little bit of like scatterbrain to him where he's sort of flying around without a plan too often. I didn't see a lot of that from game 1 in Summer League. There felt a little bit more like veteran poise to him than was the case in his year 1. So was very thrilled to see that. I do think that he's going to be a big part of this rotation. And the guy that he's going to be competing with, 2nd round pick Janai Broome, as well as Andre Drummond there if he's still on the roster. What did you think of Broome's performance in game 1 of the Summer League?
Yeah, I didn't think it was great. I believe he was 4 for 11 from the field, but he made 2 threes. We know he can step out and make some threes. He's a smaller big, so he's going to have to extend the floor with his jumper. I just wasn't really that impressed. And yes, he was a typical guy who's a great college player. I don't think his game will translate as a small, bruising big who just isn't big or athletic enough to go against some of the big men in the NBA, the centers and power forwards in the NBA. I just can't really imagine him being in the Sixers rotation this year or beyond. He's just not a successful NBA player to me based on his build. He's a high character guy, a really hard worker, and a good guy to have in the locker room. So it's a 2nd round pick. Sure, it's not that big of a deal, but I wasn't impressed with him the other night, and I don't think he'll be in the rotation or have any impact on this Sixers team next year.
Yeah, I was not a Janai Broome guy before the draft, and then the Sixers made that selection. I sort of dove deeper in and tried to like talk myself into it a little bit. The concern for me right now would be like, this dude is as close to a finished product as you're kind of going to get drafting a player. Like, there is not this untapped potential. He kind of is who he is at this point in this game. And what I see was a guy that I just don't see a defined NBA role for. To give him a little bit of credit here, he did look like he thinned down pretty notably since college, that I thought like he didn't look like he couldn't move out there or his legs were stuck in mud or anything like that. I thought he was competitive in trying with that. But sort of some of the selling points that he can bring to the table is he can be a guy that can be a bit of a hub of the offense or playmake. I saw none of that in game one, really. And there were even a couple decisions that I thought, like, honestly, just looked dumb to me, that I was like, I don't see what you're seeing in this specific situation here. I'm going to
Yeah, I
stay.
don't think so. Something that you, as you were talking yourself into him, something that you pointed out was you thought he was a good passer. And I never thought that he was a good passer. He really improved at Auburn passing out of double teams because teams would constantly double him in the low post or the mid post. But I don't like no one's ever going to double him in the NBA or even in
You're
a
right.
summer league setting. So is he really a good passer when it's not out of double teams? And he honestly, a lot of these doubles that college teams throw at him, they're not even doubling from his back. He's facing the double team when they're throwing at him. So it's pretty easy to pass out of that double team. So I was never impressed with him as a passer. He can slim down, but that's not really the concern with him. It's more the athleticism and the size. And I just don't think that'll translate to the NBA.
Yeah, the lack of verticality and jumping was very evident in that game. And like I put up that video after draft night as sort of a joke of me doing basically a box jump higher than his vertical here. While that's like a joke there, it's also like, dude, that should not be happening. Like,
I mean, he had one of the worst verticals
ever
in combine history. Like, we know how unathletic he is. It's not a secret.
I did think he was the worst in the class. It does turn out that it's Derek Queen, so I will just put that one on record there. But any other guys that popped out to you from Summer League before we keep it rolling?
Not really. I really think Justin Edwards is going to have an awesome year for the Sixers. I'm really high on him. He wasn't remarkable in the Summer League game at all. Yeah, there was a lot of times you didn't notice him, but I think he's going to have a great year for the Sixers. Again, like, Summer League is very fun to get hype about and get excited about great performances and trash guys, call them bust because they're bad because of bad performances. It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. There's been many, many prospects who have struggled in Summer League and have had incredible NBA careers, and many who have been awesome in Summer League and have had bad NBA careers. So in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter, but it's a fun event to get excited about.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right about this. And the last thing that I'll just tie a little bow on this here is there is sometimes that sinking feeling when you draft the top guy and he doesn't quite have the juice or, what you're expecting there. VJ Edgecombe's got it. So we'll check this way as a positive. The Sixers are back in action tonight.
And if he keeps this up into Vegas, he probably won't be playing too many more games.
It's very possible there. And I will say, like, Justin Edwards was a guy I kind of wanted to have circled as a show why you're too good to be here type guy. Hasn't looked to be the case. And I think we should accept that he's going to be always a low usage type guy that fits in around guys more so than being the dude, which is totally useful and fine.
For that exact reason, I'm not even sure why he's in the Summer League. Like, Summer League is very unnecessary for guys who have gotten real NBA reps. Like, Justin Edwards played a ton because of all the injuries last year, so he got real NBA reps. Summer League is for very young guys, really rookies, or to me it should be for rookies or guys, well, obviously trying to make the league, but guys who have not played a lot in the NBA, like two-way guys who just aren't in rotations and haven't had a lot of NBA reps. Justin Edwards had a ton of those last year because of all the injuries. It's just, like you said, he's a low-usage guy. You're not going to run stuff through him. So I don't really understand the point of him being in Summer League. And for that reason, they might pull him. Not necessarily because he's dominating him. They might just pull him earlier because it's not really accomplishing a lot for his development playing in Summer League.
Yeah, it's possible there. I do like it when a guy like earns, like, I'm too good to be here, or is very clearly the best player on the floor, and then they pull you after that. Maxey, I know, went through that with here. Like, that's a cool kind of earn it situation to me, but nonetheless, we'll see how things shake out from there. I do want to keep it in the Sixers world a little bit, though, here. Gershon Yabusele, we have not talked about since it has become official yet. Signing with the New York Knicks, going to the evil empire there, joining the dark side. Very frustrating stuff, and Yabu himself has been a little bit more expressive than I think he probably should be on how this went down. Speaking about it, to put my 2 cents in before I toss to you, I'd have zero hate in my heart for Yabu, or don't think anybody can have any real disdain for him for how this went down. The reality is, if anything, I think this is the Sixers fumbling the situation, and it directly ties to the Quentin Grimes situation, which we're going to circle into this. I wish it wasn't the Knicks. If it was 28 other NBA teams, that I would be thrilled for Yabusele, be supporting him from afar. It's maddening that it's them, but I can't fault the dude for just getting his money, and I think, if anything, like, the blame has to fall on the Sixers.
You just know there's going to be a second round series next year, Knicks Sixers, and Yabusele is going to have an incredible game 4 that's going to swing the series. You just know that's coming. It's going to make everyone sick to their stomach. It's really a shame because Daryl Morey, everyone kind of is under the impression that after that huge Olympic run with France last year, that he was just going to come to the NBA, and that was an inevitable conclusion to that Olympic run and the dunk on LeBron. That's not true. There weren't a ton of suitors for him last year. There were some, there weren't a ton. Like Daryl Morey is the guy that brought him back to the NBA. And so Daryl Morey deserves credit for that, but it's just really a shame that the Sixers are supposed to be contenders and Gershon Yabusele was supposed to play a key bench role for a contending team. And they got a great year out of Gershon during a wasted season, a disastrous season for the Sixers. So that's really just a shame because Daryl Morey does deserve credit for that. I don't have a problem with him being expressive about the situation because I think he expected the Sixers to prioritize him more. Like, I think he realized how well he played. He wanted this. He wanted to return to Philly. He constantly talked about how much he loved Philly. You and me were at the Rights to Ricky Sanchez live show where he went on stage and Philly showed love to him and he showed love right back to Philly. And something like that, I think he wanted to stay here. The only problem was he's getting almost $4 more million to play for New York. And that's the situation that it is. And I think he was disappointed by that. The reality for the Sixers is you can't blame them because they're going to sign Quentin Grimes eventually. The restricted free agent market is really weird this year, but they're going to sign him eventually. Another team will make an offer and the Sixers will match it or however it works out. But if they were going to sign Quentin Grimes, which they will, they can't afford Gershon Yabusele at the price the Knicks are getting him at. So it was really one or the other. And at that point, you're prioritizing Quentin Grimes. And I think that's the smart move from the Sixers perspective because Quentin Grimes is going to be a starter most likely and be in the backcourt with Tyrese Maxey. Gershon Yabusele would play a big role and they need front court depth, but they trust Adam Bona. He was going to come off the bench. I think it's smart to prioritize Quentin Grimes instead of Yabusele. And just sad it worked out that way and that he went to a rival, but that's just how it goes.
So a couple things here. This is why I say you can blame the Sixers here. And I will preface this with every time I think I have the salary cap understood here, something else, a wrench gets thrown into it. So I'll throw that little asterisk next to it. I wholeheartedly agree. Out of the two of them, you have to prioritize Quentin Grimes. I don't understand why the holdup is on Quentin Grimes not being signed. And my understanding is based on the NBA order of operations, what had to go down is they can get Quentin Grimes on the books because he's a restricted free agent. And depending on where exactly that number fits, you then could have offered that MLE to Gershon, the same numbers that the Knicks offered, frankly, a little bit more than the Knicks offered because he took a hair under that for New York there. The holdup
could have offered $6 million.
Correct. If Quentin Grimes,
Yabusele, even with what they're about to pay Quentin Grimes,
they have to sign Grimes first. So where's the priorities come in? If you had signed Yabusele, then you put yourself in a tough spot for Grimes. You're capped out. Anything above that 15.4, I think is the number. You can't go above that. So theoretically, in this case, why Daryl Morey did not want to do this is that if you sign Gershon, you cap yourself on where Grimes, then a team can offer that, and then all of a sudden you can't match that. That's what they didn't want to do, which makes sense. But my understanding is if you sign Quentin Grimes, get him on the books here, you then have access to that, and that's basically your final move of the offseason.
But just to add to that, he was a restricted free agent, so you
Correct.
Can't play that game. You can't take that gamble. You know what I mean? Like if he's an unrestricted free agent, then you can sign him, and then you could first, and then you can get your Gershon on the books as well. But if you can't gamble with Quentin Grimes if another team offers something that the Sixers can't match because then you lose out on him. So when you have to prioritize the two, you don't want to take that gamble because Quentin Grimes is more valuable to this team.
You're right, but there has not been an offer for Quentin Grimes. There has not really been an offer for any restricted free agent this summer. This $25 million price point that he just kind of willy-nilly threw out there, he's not getting that from anyone. That the free agency money has dried up. The Brooklyn Nets don't have cap space. The Detroit Pistons don't have cap space. So if no other team can offer that type of money for him, why has there not been a deal agreed upon yet?
No, it's a great question. I think a lot of people are very confused about what's going on with the restricted free agent market right now because I don't understand why teams haven't made offers. Even when you look at Jonathan Kuminga, like I think there's something that a lot of us are missing with this new collective bargaining where something is going on with restricted free agent where I don't know if it's a certain date where these negotiations can't happen, but there's a lot of restricted free agents where usually these guys would have had offers and either the team would have matched it or they would have gone to play for that team, but that hasn't happened for a lot of guys. But to the Gershon point, you can't just hope that nobody's going to match that offer. So, and Gershon's an unrestricted free agent. He was going to wait around for the Sixers. He had to go sign somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't fault Gershon for him whatsoever. You get your money what's on the table there. And like reportedly all that was offered, because based on the same kind of order of operations I'm laying out, that they offered him a veteran's minimum, which I understand him not wanting to take that. He got like more than double that to,
Yeah.
play for the Knicks with it. I do think they would have given him the MLE if that he had hung around for it, but he's not really a guy that can afford to do that at this point. When you think about like, he flamed out of the NBA the first time, played overseas for several seasons, came back on a veteran's minimum next year. Like, this is his time to earn his money. I can't fault him for that whatsoever. But the critique that I would throw at the Sixers directly here is, if a Grimes deal had been done already, then I think that you open the door for keeping Gershon as well. And I think that has to fall. The only point
but is that the Sixers' fault is what I'm saying, because of everything that's going on with the restricted free agent market and why teams haven't necessarily offered anything at this point. So I don't know if that's necessarily the Sixers' fault or based on how this new collective bargaining works with restricted free agents.
It's a fair point. I think the only real key difference that I've noted with the restricted free agent marker, why I think there's a holdup, is like one of the later changes was when you make an offer sheet, that your cap space is directly tied. Like, you basically spend the money for 2 days, and it's whether a team matches or not. So like, say in this case, a team makes a crazy offer for Quentin Grimes and the Sixers sit on it for the full 48 hours that they have. They can't do anything with that money during that period here. So you kind of like lock yourself out of free agency for an extent. That's the only real reason that I've heard. That still honestly is not quite good enough for me. I don't understand why there has not been a long-term deal agreed upon between Quentin Grimes and the Sixers yet.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. And it's like I said, with Jonathan Kuminga, and there's some other restricted free agents out there too, where there's just not a lot of movement for whatever reason, because there's not a lot of money out there at this point.
Yeah.
It's just the money's completely dried up in the free agent market because all these unrestricted free agents have gone, and there wasn't a lot of teams that had cap space to begin with. So it's weird, but I feel like, I assume there'll be some sort of resolution this week.
Yeah, reports are saying that there has not been a lot of communication yet, which is, we will see what happens from there. Ultimately, I don't think there's any chance that Grimes walks away from the Sixers. I think he will be in a Philadelphia 76ers uniform next year, like 100%, but we will see what the details and numbers all play out to be. Another key change around the league here is the Los Angeles Lakers finally found a center here. His name is DeAndre Ayton. One of the more controversial, and a guy that I think is, I could have just predicted is going to be a Laker at some point, it kind of feels. So what were your impressions of the DeAndre Ayton signing after the Portland Trailblazers elected to buy him out there? Is this a move that changes how you view the Lakers, and can this guy be a capable big man for this team?
I don't like it. I mean, look, they didn't pay him a lot because obviously he got that buyout from the Blazers.
Yep.
And so he already had a massive salary, so it wasn't even looking
paid him to go away.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a reason for that, which I'll get to. But so the Lakers didn't pay him a lot, so it's kind of a low risk, low reward kind of thing for me when you don't pay a guy that much. I just don't like the signing because he's not a winning player. Like, there have been, when you listen to a lot of all-time great players, and people have been around all-time great players around all sports. A lot of it, what it comes down to is, do you love basketball or do you not love basketball? And it's really that simple, because if you love the game, you'll work hard to be as good as possible and you'll impact winning in the right way. It's pretty clear. It's not even a question at this point. DeAndre Ayton does not love basketball. He just doesn't. He's not a hard worker. He's an incredibly low effort player, constantly late, poor discipline. There is a reason the Suns moved on from him. There is a reason the Blazers are paying to not have that guy on their own team. He is not a winning basketball player. He does not impact winning. The stats and the numbers and the talent are all there. All of that exists with DeAndre Ayton, which is why he was the number one pick. He was the number one pick in the 2018 draft, the same draft that Luka Doncic, now his teammate, was in. But that was because of his pure talent, not because of his work ethic, not because of his effort. And those things just don't exist with him. And I don't think that's good for a JJ Redick culture. A guy, JJ Redick, when you listen to his post-game press conferences last season, after every loss, it was all about the effort. After every win, it was all about the effort. And he really believed in the regular season, effort is just what determined these basketball games. And with a low effort guy, you're bringing that guy into your culture that JJ Redick's trying to establish. I don't like the move. Also, just from his purpose, like, Luka Doncic is best when he's with a Derek Lively type, a rim running center, a lob threat. DeAndre Ayton isn't that guy. He gets touches around the nail. He gets touches in the mid post. That's when he's best operating. He's not like he can be, and maybe they'll transform into that. But most of his career, he hasn't been an above the rim lob threat, rim running center type. So the talent's there. The effort is not, and I don't think it's a good move to bring someone like that into this new culture that JJ Redick's trying to build. Maybe it'll work out. He'll have monstrous games. He might have a 20-20 game here and there, and that because we know the talent's there. I just don't think this moves the needle at all in the Lakers' direction, where a lot of the other the West, all around the West, got way better. The Lakers did not this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, beggars can't be choosers here from the Lakers' perspective that they just so desperately needed a big man, and DeAndre Ayton is still that. Like, let's not forget.
But I would have rather wanted, yes, but there was actually
Who?
There was actually decent centers on the board. I would have rather have Clint Capella. I know he's old at this point. He's more of the prototype Luka Doncic plays with. I really would have rather had Brook Lopez, who only got, the Lakers could have offered him, I believe it was $8.1 million, that mid-level. And the Clippers only offered him $9 million. So he really took that difference for $1 million. Would he not have gone to play with Luka Doncic and the Lakers? I like Brook Lopez is a guy I would have wanted. There's other centers available on the trade market I would have wanted. Anybody other than DeAndre Ayton.
So Capella's deal came in 3-year, $21 million. It looks like $21.5 million. You can't Brook Lopez can't be a starting center anymore. Like, he could not move all last year. And he also, for your point about like the Derek Lively archetype, that is the opposite of Brook Lopez, man.
It is definitely, but I still think Brook Lopez is a good enough player. Like, he's old. I think he's about 37. He's getting up there in age, and you see that from his athleticism. But he's still a really talented center. Different, but you can space the floor with him. But a two-man pick and pop between him and Luka Doncic, that would be awesome.
I think he's going to be excellent with the Clippers as a backup big man, play beyond Hartenstein. And let's not forget our boy Yannick, who Penn State product, who got picked 30th overall. I think he's going to fit a really nice role.
You mean Zubac.
Or
right?
Zubac, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Not Hartenstein. He had a cup of coffee there way back. But yeah, Zubac, who was terrific last year. I think he would have been overexpanded if he was asked to be a starting big man for the Lakers here. Not that DeAndre Ayton won't be. And I will say, for my personal pleasure here, I can't wait to watch JJ Redick coach this dude, because he is just the antithesis of everything that he believes in as a basketball player. DeAndre Ayton's one of the more maddening basketball players to me, because I'm still like a believer in him from a talent perspective, that you catch him on the right night and he looks like one of the more dominant big men in the league. But you're absolutely right. He just does not care. He just does not have the motor. And some of like the lack of like rebounding effort is just inexcusable out there. So let's not forget, this is the same JJ Redick who played his entire starting 24 consecutive minutes in the playoffs because he did not trust anybody. That Jackson Hayes, who was the only real big man option, was just straight up pulled out of the rotation. And by the way, is back on roster this year with a no trade clause. So pretty interesting how that was all playing out. My ultimate conclusion here, I don't think the center spot is solved for the Lakers by any means. I still think that's going to be a massive weakness. And it feels like there continues to be some momentum about this LeBron James being unsure conversation. Are you still reading into that?
Yeah, well, so first, to an earlier point you made, when I was writing my winners and losers late last week, that was my exact point that I made, is that this Lakers team only played 5 guys in the second half of a playoff game for the first time in NBA history. Not a single substitution, because their depth was that poor. One of those 5 guys, Dorian Finney-Smith, is gone, and they brought in Jake LaRavia, I believe his name is.
LaRavia,
LaRavia, excuse me, can't pronounce names. LaRavia from the Kings, who is a downgrade from Dorian Finney-Smith, but can serve a decent role. I don't think he's the player that Dorian Finney-Smith is. But regardless,
I think he's better.
You really think he's better? I don't think he's as good of a defender.
Yeah, that's true, but he can play make more. He can shoot it. I would say probably better, at least close. Dorian's better defender and probably like a cleaner fit as like a 3-and-D archetype type guy. But there's some stuff to Jake LaRavia. That's going to be, trust me, keep the eye there.
Regardless, they got rid of him, brought in someone who you can say maybe is on the same level, downgrade, upgrade, whatever. Those are still the 5 guys that they're going to be rolling with. And then you bring in DeAndre Ayton, who, as I just told you, I am not high on for all of the reasons, because of his attitude, his effort, work ethic, all these things is why he hasn't been the type of player. He hasn't lived up to his potential in the NBA. So did they really get better with their depth from a depth perspective? I don't think so. Like, I don't think this team caught up to the Nuggets, who built a ton of depth this postseason or this offseason. The teams like the Thunder, the Clippers, even the Rockets are loaded with depth. They're on the Thunder's level with their type of depth they're going to play. They have too much depth, and they had to get rid of Cam Whitmore because they had too much depth. So, who I think is a really good player. So I just don't think this Lakers team solved those problems when they had to play 5 guys in the second half of a playoff game for the first time in NBA history. The LeBron conversation, a lot of people think he's going to get traded. I don't really see that happening. Do you?
I don't see like a
There's a no
realistic
trade clause.
pathway.
He would have to control his destination.
For sure, but it's more to me like who is trading for LeBron James right now. Like the Cavs are the team that I've continued to circle back from, but diving into it, like they're gonna have to do some real cap gymnastics to make that possible. It's not
They're a second apron team.
correct. They would basically have to shed money to get down into the first apron, and then you can still sort of piece it together. The point being, there's not like a clear path to this. I don't know where that like. It sounds crazy to say there's not really a market for LeBron James, but I can't really see a team going out and trading for him right now.
It's funny because it's like we're talking about LeBron James,
right?
And my question is, who actually wants LeBron James
right
now? He's on an expiring deal, and he might have 1 or maybe max 2 more years left in his career, and he's still a top 15 to 20 player in the league, but he's visibly declined. And which what we saw last season, and he's dealt with injuries the last few years for the first time in his career. Nothing major, but injuries that have prevented him from playing for weeks at a time. So who wants this guy right now? We're talking about LeBron James, so it's crazy to say, but yes, it is like who wants this guy? The Clippers you could throw in as a potential trade target when he would stay in Los Angeles. I can't see him going anywhere other than the Lakers or the Cavs, and I don't know why the Cavs would want him. I don't know why anyone would want him at this point if you have to give up real younger pieces that you have signed long term. So I can't see him getting traded, both because I don't know where he would want to go. I don't know who would want him. So that's why I don't think he's going to get traded. Do I think he's going to be a Laker next year? I'm not so sure about that. I think the Lakers are handling this as they should. They never should have gave him an extension. And I think his team and his camp was pissed about that they didn't give him an extension, but that was the right move. You shouldn't be paying this guy exorbitant amounts of money at this point of his career. He's not some Kobe Bryant type where he gave 20 years to Los Angeles Lakers. They should not have this absurd loyalty. I know fans don't have this absurd loyalty to LeBron James. So the organization shouldn't either. Like he's some Kobe Bryant type. You respect what he's done for you. Of course, you won a championship in the bubble that one year and you've had some great seasons. And of course, it's just the LeBron James factor in LA. There should be no loyalty attached to this. It's in their best interest to not be paying $50 million for this guy after this season. So I think you play this year out, and I think you don't sign LeBron James unless he's willing to take a massive pay cut next year. I think you start to design this team around Luka Doncic more than anyone else.
Yeah, and I think that they're taking those steps actively right now, to be honest. And I think we've seen a little bit of the passing the baton for who are the decisions made for in the Lakers franchise. And I think that's correct. I'm not critiquing that whatsoever. It's very strange because LeBron, since he's been in the NBA, has been very clearly the guy and the guy who everyone operates around for. There does seem to be a bit of a, I guess, disagreement under brewing with the Lakers with the two timelines here. When you have Luka Doncic, the next generation here, the guy who can receive the baton from LeBron right there. But at the same token, it is kind of crazy to me to talk about, like, are these guys actual contenders, or is there a better location? When they traded for Luka Doncic last year, like, I feel like that has gotten brushed over a little bit. Like, there is a part of me that is like, well, LeBron, if you still think you're this guy, this is still your team, man. You are playing with Luka Doncic. If you take LeBron from like the early Cavs days and showed him this Lakers roster, he'd be like, oh, well, we're going to the finals. Like, there's no doubt about it. So I get he's old. I get he's at the end of your career. But if you still are this dude, then be this dude on this Lakers team.
That's why the statement from Rich Paul when they opted into the player option was so bizarre.
Yeah.
Because it pretty much points to the fact that LeBron wants to play for a championship contender and a contending roster. I think the word was the phrase that they used. And that implied the Lakers don't have that. You just traded for a top 5 player in the league last year. And you and Anthony Davis were on a sinking ship. Like that, you guys were not a good pairing together. You were trying to hand the baton to Anthony Davis, who could never be the best player on any team. You guys hadn't been above a 7 seed in like 3 consecutive years, and they weren't on pace to be last year before they traded for Luka Doncic, even though they made a Western Conference Finals run as a play-in team. So still, like, this was a perennial play-in team. So the roster got better just by adding Luka Doncic. So what are you talking about when your camp is saying, Rich Paul is saying he wants to play for a contending roster? You're not going to find a better one than that, than the Los Angeles Lakers. And LeBron knows he can't be the best player on a team at this point. He knows he has to take more of a secondary role. And him and Luka can play together. I don't think there's any doubts about that. They're two of the brilliant players to ever play this game. And both can play on the off ball. And I think LeBron's really improved playing off ball. He's become a really knockdown 3-point shooter the last few years. So I think from that perspective, it works from a basketball fit. I just don't know what his problem is with this roster and with this team. I think it's more that he's upset with how they're handling stuff off the court, maybe not showing loyalty that he would expect by giving him an extension before this player option even had the option to hit. So I just don't think that this LeBron Lakers partnership is going to extend beyond this season. I think that's best for the Lakers, and the Lakers should have the Lakers' interest in mind and nobody else.
What does that mean for Bronny James?
It's a good question. It's like, I was actually thinking about that the other day. You're upset at this organization, LeBron. Like, that's what he implied with that statement. You're upset at this organization that drafted your son. Your son had no chance of being an NBA player unless you were in the league.
You can't do both. You can't do both those things. If I need a playoff contending roster and also draft my son.
Exactly. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's the last roster spot, but you can't get mad at an organization who literally drafted your son so you could become the first father-son duo to play in an NBA basketball game in history. You can't be upset at an organization for doing that. Like, those things don't go hand in hand. That the organization did that. So what happens to him? I don't know. I mean, he'll probably follow LeBron. If LeBron gets traded, LeBron goes somewhere else, he'll probably follow him. But who knows? LeBron will own a team one day, so he'll just draft Bryce and Bronny and take up 2 roster spots with that. And I'm sure that team will be really successful.
Yeah, Bryce going to Arizona this year, so shout out that. I will say Bronny looking a little bit better in summer league this year. Certainly miles ahead of where he was this time last year. I was pretty astounded. And I've shared this before, but being out there for summer league last year, it was insane. Every time he touched the ball, the whole building like going nuts of it was something like I've never really seen before. And I guess some of that.
I mean, you got to feel for him. He for the player that he is, the pressure that's on him is just ridiculous, and it's not really right. Like, I was at the Lakers Sixers game when the Lakers came to Philly last season, and that was the game Bronny played a ton of minutes. They actually flew him out a couple of days before. He was with the G League team. They flew him out to come play, and he played a ton. And JJ Redick put him in an awful spot. He was horrible that game. Turnovers after turnovers. He had no confidence. He looked uncomfortable out there. They were attacking him defensively, putting him in every single action. He couldn't hold his own at all. And that was like a moment where it's like, all right, this guy really is not even close to an NBA player, but he has the opportunity to develop, and you hope it works out.
Yeah, 100% there. And I'm rooting for Bronny. I have no hate in my heart for Bronny, but it will be interesting to see how that plays out here. The last guy I want to bring up.
We got breaking news here.
What we got?
Clippers, Jazz, and Heat have agreed to a trade that sends Norman Powell to Miami.
Wow.
John Collins to LA. Wow, that's interesting. And Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, 2027 Clippers second round pick to the Jazz.
Wow.
So initially, Norman Powell had an awesome season last year.
Oh,
Incredible year. He shot like 42 or 43% from three, something like
Norman
that.
Powell's the real deal.
He was a potential all-star. That is a big deal. The Clippers just got rid of him. And to bring in John Collins, who has dealt with some injuries, he was on a bad Jazz team. I think is still a really good player, but that's kind of an interesting fit in Los Angeles, getting rid of Norman Powell. What else? We got John Collins to LA, Norman Powell to the Heat. I mean, the Heat are still going to be the Heat.
Initial reaction for me is, all right, this is the first time the Heat have been on to something and trending in the right direction. I think a Tyler Hero, Norman Powell, Bam Adebayo trio there, that's obviously not like going to be the gold standard of the Eastern Conference, but they're way more in the mix than they were before making this deal. I don't understand why the Clippers made this whatsoever. Yeah,
I don't like this from the Clippers perspective. Here's what I'll say. Kevin Love to the Jazz, that means Kevin Love will 100% be bought out, and Kevin Love will end up on a different team. Kyle Anderson, he what'd you say?
Slow-mo.
Yeah, he is slow-mo. I like this for the Heat a lot too. Like, that's what I would say initially. I like this for the Heat a lot. When you bring in Norman Powell, a borderline all-star last year for Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love, that's a massive upgrade. Do I think the Heat are like one of the 5-6 best teams in the East now? No, but that's a massive upgrade. So I like this from the Heat. A little weird from the Clippers perspective. Kevin Love will be bought out, or maybe Jazz will use him as a trade piece, and we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I'm pretty confused about this from the Clippers perspective. I love it for the Heat. I am a Norman Powell guy that I do think he's like legitimately good. Probably never an all-star, but always going to be right on like the fringe of that.
Because the other thing too with the Clippers is Kawhi didn't play till like December of last season. And it was Norman Powell and James Harden, especially Norman Powell, carrying the scoring load for that team. What do you really expect Kawhi Leonard to be playing more than 55 to 60 games this season? That's an unfair expectation towards him. So you need Norman Powell to carry that load. Yeah, I think John Collins is a good player, but he's not like the on-ball creator that Norman Powell is. So yeah, I don't love this from the Clippers perspective.
Yeah, we'll get some cool lobs between James Harden and John Collins, but I'm Norman Powell's the real deal, man. I think that was they're underselling how good he can be in this type of trade. But good little breaking news there. The last guy I want to hit on before we run through a couple win totals here, Bradley Beal, maybe the next domino to fall across the NBA. Now, the Miami Heat were a team I initially had my eye on as a potential match if he is bought out from the Phoenix Suns, as is seemingly going to be the expectation. It does look like there's going to be a bit of the stretch provision in the same way that was done with Dame going down in Phoenix there. These teams are just blowing money left and right. But nonetheless, that is the hole the Phoenix Suns have dug themselves, and they're continuing to dig that deeper. So any feel for where that Bradley Beal could end up once he is inevitably bought out?
Yeah, I think the Heat were an option. When you bring in Norman Powell, it kind of nixes that a little bit because they both have on-ball roles. Look, I don't love Bradley Beal. Like, I'm
Me
not going to
neither.
sit here and defend Bradley Beal. I do think he can still give you something because based on this buyout, he's not going to want a large contract, or would he warrant a large contract at this point of his career? So it's a similar to DeAndre Ayton, but in a different way, where it's buy low, it's low risk, low reward. So when you bring in Bradley Beal, it's going to be for a very small amount, veterans minimum, I believe, something like that. And
Do the Clippers think they're getting him?
I think that's an interesting call. I think that's doing the Brian Windhorst things up. Why would they do that right now? You could get Bradley Beal for very cheap, and he's still worth that for what you're going to have to pay him. He's worth that contract. It's worth taking a risk on this guy based on how little you're going to have to actually pay him. So I like that with the Clippers. He's not the player Norman Powell is at this point, but he is a decent replacement for Norman Powell when you also bring in John Collins. I think that's a really good call by you because I don't think the Heat are really an option anymore. And I don't know a lot of other teams that would want a Bradley Beal right now. So I could definitely see that being the Clippers.
Yeah, he does feel like a Clippers player, Bradley Beal. This feels like the type of move that they swing for. I will say, for all we said about DeAndre Ayton, I think Bradley Beal is every bit the loser that he is. I might even argue Bradley Beal is a larger loser as far as a guy who has the skill set to be dominant whenever, just very clearly does not care and is so unbothered by.
Why do you think he doesn't care? Like, I don't think there's like work ethic concerns. I don't think there's effort concerns. I think
there certainly was effort concerns last year.
Yes, but that was a very unique situation where like both sides grew incredibly disgruntled with one another. So that was a very unique situation. On a given night, not in that situation. He's not a guy who's ever showed low effort. Like, he gave it all for the Wizards all those years. He just isn't good enough to be a one or top two guy.
I would say for a while that's true. I don't think we've seen Bradley Beal play legitimate competitive basketball in probably 2-3 seasons at this point.
Yeah, you're right. But also, let's go through his game logs. He's dealt with a ton of injuries going back to 2020, 2021, 60 games, 40 games the next year, 50 games, 53, then 53 again. He hasn't played a full season since 2018, 2019. So he's dealt with a ton of injuries, which has also contributed to it.
That doesn't make me want to sign the guy more.
No, I agree. But when you're paying him nothing, which whoever will pay him nothing, essentially, it's worth the risk because you're not spending a lot on this guy. And if it doesn't work out, he's not going to have a no trade clause anymore. It's just you can get rid of him or bench him.
All right, I have another question cooked off the Phoenix Suns situation because the Devin Booker is set to sign a 2-year, $150 million extension, it appears, with Phoenix. Sam Oshtry, how good is Devin Booker really?
I think Devin Booker's awesome. I love Devin Booker.
How awesome?
So I was overseas a few months ago, and someone asked me, we were just talking basketball with someone. Someone asked me my favorite player in the league, and I don't actually have an answer for that. So I didn't know what to say. And like, for some reason, I just said Devin Booker. And he's like, what? Why is Devin Booker your favorite player in the NBA? And that's probably not true. He's not my favorite player in the NBA. I don't really have one at this point. I need to pick someone. But I do love Devin Booker. Always have. Always loved his game. Do I think if he's the best player on your team, you have a great chance of winning a championship? No, I don't. I do think he can be a number 2 guy. He was the best player on a perfectly constructed roster for him, though. Like, we're not that far removed from him being the best player on a team that went to the championship when he had a great point guard next to him. I think Devin Booker's at his best when he has a great point guard initiating the offense as a table setter. Chris Paul, when he played along Chris Paul, he was great. Devin Booker was the best player on that team with Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton obviously played a big role on that team too. I think Devin Booker is capable of being a top guy on a really good team. So I think he's on the level, like a top 8 to 10 player in the league? No, I don't even think he's the top 10 player in the league if I was going to go through my rankings. But I think
15,
he's an
20.
awesome. He's not past 20. We have to go through player by player. He's definitely not past 20. I think Devin Booker is still an awesome player who can be a really good player on a really good team. And we're not that far removed from him being the best player on a finals team.
I don't want you to, and for the record, I'm not like a full out anti Devin Booker guy. I just really question. I don't think he's a $75 million per year type of player. And I think like,
but he's a max player. Like all the top 15 to 20 players in the league are max players. So if you're putting him in that range, all of those guys warrant max contracts. It hinders your ability to build teams around those guys based on the restrictions with the aprons. But all those guys get, the history of the league says they get max contracts. So he is in that range.
Don't cheat. What do you think Devin Booker's career high 3-point percentage was?
Career high?
Yeah, over a season.
Maybe 36 or 37.
38.3%.
Okay.
If we're going to set the NBA average, I believe is right around 35% there. How many seasons for his career do you think he shot over 35%?
3.
5 of the 10 years. So half the years he's been a below average NBA 3-point shooters. And
I thought these numbers were going to be way worse. So I was really underselling these predictions.
Yeah. Like last year, he shot 33.2% from 3 last year. That's just not good enough for a guy that's going to be like, is taking the shot volume that, and from the locations that he does. I like Devin Booker, the way he goes about his business, the way he does compete defensively. And I think he's about the right stuff, but he's just not a shooter in the way that I think he's advertised sometimes.
Okay. But you know what year that 38% 3-point percentage was?
The Chris Paul year.
It was 2021, 2022 when they went to the finals, when he had Chris Paul by his side. Like having a point guard, he's not a guy. He's gotten better at playing point guard. He's become a better playmaker. His assist numbers have been up last couple of years. So I like Devin Booker as a playmaker. He can get those reps. He's at his best when he is playing the wing and not initiating the offense. And he has a great point guard setting up shots for him. Of course, he can create for himself. But Devin Booker is at his best when you're bringing him off different types of actions, like curl actions, all these different things. And that's when he can drill threes from there. He doesn't have a point guard. He hasn't had a point guard in years. He's had to play the point guard the last couple of years. Kevin Durant has had some reps at point guard. They thought Tyus Jones would work out. He didn't really work out at point guard.
Tyus Jones.
I like him too, but he didn't work out last year. He wasn't good last year. So I just don't think when Devin Booker needs a point guard, that's on the Suns. It's not on Devin Booker. It's on the Suns. I think he can be a great 3-point shooter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. No love for Monty Morris last year either, I guess. But,
absolutely not.
I don't know. I'll leave the Devin Booker conversation.
So what do you think? Like this, what would you think the Suns should have done with him? Like
I don't know.
Completely trade him and completely start over in a rebuild?
I mean, truthfully, the Suns messed this up like 6 steps ago, and they just keep compounding all this kind of situation. So we'll see what overall shakes out from here. I think like they are pushing the limits of the CBA and like the league financial situation beyond what any team I thought would be willing to here. We'll see how it shakes out. I get that they had to pay him, and I think this probably is something that it's like a keep control of the asset standpoint where you have this guy under contract and can always hit that, trade for whatever if they need to here. I don't know. It didn't sit right when I saw those numbers.
I think the Suns are actually doing Devin Booker a disservice by keeping him around because
Fair
I want
point.
to see Devin Booker on a contending team. Like the Suns should just start over at this point. I get keeping a star who's been there his entire career, has shown a lot of loyalty to Phoenix. I think he loves Phoenix. A lot of NBA players love being out in Phoenix and living in Phoenix. The Suns should trade him, though, to start over and just get onto a rebuild. And from my perspective as a Devin Booker fan, I want to see him on a contending team. I don't want to see him try to drag this awful team. The Suns are one of the worst front offices in the entire league, one of the worst ownership groups at this point in the entire league. They've done an awful job building this roster around Devin Booker and around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker when they traded for Kevin Durant. So I want to see Devin Booker on a different team, on a contending team where he doesn't have to be the guy all the time. And that's when I think he's at his best. So I hope at some point he gets back to that where he can make a real finals run again.
My last note on that is they've financially made some really poor decisions. I still think this Suns front office is bizarre because they've done some stuff that I like. Like even this year, Rasheer Fleming in the second round, bringing that in. Kamen Malawak with the 10th pick that they brought in. Even looking back at last year's draft, Ryan Dunn, Oso Iguodala, these are good players that you've been pretty creative in finding ways. And some of like the minimum guys they've brought in, things like that, have been creative and things that I think like are good roster practice here. But I think, like, once again, this stems from problems that sparked up like 6 decisions ago that you can't fully recover from. It's really interesting to me. The Suns are one of the more unique franchises and front offices that I think I've seen in recent years. And I guess to transition directly into this next one here, I do want to look at some win total over under here and get your thoughts. And I want to lead it right with this Phoenix Suns team, which is going to be an interesting experience here. Their number, and these all coming from DraftKings Sportsbook here, 31.5 for the Phoenix Suns. What is your initial impression of that? Does that number surprise you?
The West is so tough. So I get it. I get it. I don't think this team will be above a play-in team. And if they have a really good year, I think their ceiling is a play-in team. So that would be a 7-8 seed. 31 wins, 31.5 wins. Is that really what it was?
5th lowest in the NBA. That's correct.
Yeah, that's exceptionally low. I mean, the West is so tough that I would lean the over for sure. But I can't see them getting to 40 wins. Definitely wouldn't go that high. I would say around the 35 to 38 range, which could be a play-in team, maybe as a 9 or 10 seed because the West is just so tough. But that's really low. That's some serious disrespect towards the Suns.
Yeah, a couple teams with higher win totals than the 31.5 the Phoenix Suns are posting. The Portland Trail Blazers, the Chicago Bulls, the New Orleans Pelicans, Toronto Raptors, Miami Heat, Sacramento Kings. A little disrespectful there.
Yeah, that's really disrespectful, especially the Kings. I mean, talk about dumb front offices. What are the Kings even up to? Like, what do you even want Dennis Schroeder for at this point? Like
paid him notably too.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, a couple other that jumped out to me that I did want to dive into. For starters, to run down the list, the Oklahoma City Thunder leading the pack at 62.5. Once again, the win totals brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook here. Cleveland Cavaliers second at 55.5. The Houston Rockets are third at 54.5. That one's a little bit interesting to me. Any thoughts on either of those first three or the Rockets specifically?
I would like the under on the Cavs. And last year, the Cavs were my favorite over. Like, I was just drilling, take the Cavs over. Yeah. Take the Cavs over, and they had an awesome regular season. I think you hear a lot of comments from them where the regular season doesn't matter. Like, they've acknowledged, Donovan Mitchell acknowledged that what we do for 82 games means nothing. Even if they go 82-0, it does not matter because it's all about the postseason for this team. So I think a lot more of what they'll do is get ready for the postseason and not necessarily prioritize. I mean, want a good seed in the East, of course, but they're not going to prioritize the regular season as much. They weren't as healthy. They were really healthy during the regular season, but not for the playoffs as they would have liked to have been. So maybe there's some guys' workload, and they've always been a deep team, but some guys' workload is shortened a little bit. So I like the under on the Cavs. The Rockets, I love the over, and it's because of how deep they are. This team, like Steven Adams and Clint Capella, can each play 40 games, and just pairing those guys, 41 games, and pairing those guys with Alperen Sengun and that monstrous front court that they're going to have. You can sit a couple of those guys a lot of the times. They're so deep where you can put Jabari Smith at the 5 sometimes. And all three of those guys, Alperen Sengun, Steven Adams, and Clint Capella, can all be on the bench. There's so much you can do with this lineup and these rotations. There's going to be so much flexibility and so much experimenting that Ime Udoka is going to do because they're so deep. And Kevin Durant even doesn't have to play that much. Like, Kevin Durant can play 60 to 65 games, so he's fully healthy for the postseason because this team is capable of winning a ton of regular season games with their defense, especially because they've been one of the best defenses in the league the last couple of years without Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant can rest. This team is just so deep. I don't see how they win. What was the number exactly?
55.5.
Yeah, I could see them getting upwards of 60 wins this year.
Yeah, that was going to be my take that I wrote in with is I think the Houston Rockets win the most games in the regular season of any team in the NBA next year. I think the depth which you laid out, the defensive identity that you also brought up there, like, they seriously can go through games where they have scheduled rest days with some of these guys. That's how deep. And I think that there's going to be a lot of like experimentation or experimenting from Ime Udoka, figuring out what works. But all these options sound pretty good to me. Frankly, like, their plan C is better than a lot of teams' plan A on a night-to-night basis from a rotational standpoint. So I love the over 55.5 for Houston, or 54.5, excuse me, for Houston, and do think that they end north of 60 wins this season. To jump down the list a little bit, Denver Nuggets 53.5, New York Knicks 52.5. Minnesota Timberwolves 51.5 and Orlando Magic 51.5. Any
while we're on the Nuggets,
has
there been a Jonas Valanciunas update? I saw last time I looked that the Nuggets are not letting him out of that contract. But if he wants to go over to Greece and play in the Greek league, what, like, do we have a resolution with that? Because that matters to me.
That is the latest update right now, is that the Denver Nuggets expect him to honor his contract there. He is currently overseas in Greece with the intention of signing an overseas deal. Either the stalemate works out in one way or another, that Valanciunas comes back to America and plays for the Denver Nuggets, or he cannot play overseas until he is released from his NBA deal. I don't know how that's going to ultimately work itself out. I think my bet at this point in the game is probably that Valanciunas ends up just playing for the Nuggets next year.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation. I love that signing because the Jokic hasn't had a real backup big in forever. Like DeAndre Jordan couldn't give you any minutes the last couple seasons. So him, when he's out of the game, we've seen their plus minus, and the Nuggets have just been awful in the non-Jokic minutes. So finally having a good backup center is huge. And I think Cam Johnson is upgrade over Michael Porter Jr. I just do. I think he's more of a movement, and actually so is Michael Porter Jr., but I love how much of a movement shooter Cam Johnson is.
Does more.
Incredible three-point shooter. Yeah, he definitely does more. And based on that trade, they were able to sign Bruce Brown. So I thought this Nuggets team got way better. They won the offseason for sure. So I like their over on that. I think they're going to win more regular season games because of their depth, which they still have Peyton Watson. They still have Julian Strawley. They still have these guys who are capable of giving you good regular season minutes and could be in a playoff rotation too. So I think this Nuggets team is going to have an awesome regular season, and I expect them to go over.
Yeah, I think I lean more so on that side. I don't feel as passionately about this one. I will note, like, Valanciunas is a way better basketball player than a lot of people realize. Like, he's a good player and, like, for sure the best backup that Jokic has had. So I'm with you that I would like for him to come back and join this team and try and help them contend here. I'm have a little bit of a, I guess I'm higher on Michael Porter Jr. than I'd probably say the general consensus here. I think it's going to look bizarre in Brooklyn. I do think like he's a special caliber of shooter that he doesn't always get appreciated for at his size, that he can do it off movement in those ways. With that said, Cam Johnson's about as close as you can come to that exact archetype of player and can do more beyond just a shooter, which we know the limitations from a defensive standpoint and athleticism standpoint that Michael Porter Jr. still holds. So I totally get the swing, and with all the flexibility and what they did with that, I still think it was the right move for Denver there. So kind of interesting there. I
just want to hit on the Knicks real quick too, because you mentioned the Knicks, another team that added a ton of depth. Like that was a lot of these teams' goals this offseason, where there weren't a lot of marquee free agents, not a lot of cap space available. Add depth, and who needed depth more than the Knicks? Not a lot of teams. You bring in Jordan Clarkson, who's going to be an electric scorer off the bench. There are concerns about his efficiency, all this, but he was playing on an awful Jazz team. I think he gets back to being a lightning rod of a scorer off the bench and can assume a lot of those primary ball handling responsibilities when Jalen Brunson's out. Maybe you can even sit Jalen Brunson for longer stretches. And you bring in Gershon Yabusele, who we already talked about, who I think is going to have an incredible season for the Knicks and is a perfect fit for that team. So when you already have those two guys and Deuce McBride off the bench, and Mike Brown is a regular season coach. I think he's a great coach. I don't know if we even touched on that. I think Mike Brown's a great coach. There's not a lot of playoff resume there, which could be a concern, but he's a guy that practices really hard during the regular season, really prioritizes the regular season. I think the Knicks are going to be a top 2 seed in the East and go over that win total too.
Mike Brown took the Cavs to an Eastern Conference Finals. He's got 4 championships as an assistant coach there.
That's an assistant coach. That's not a playoff resume. He hasn't won a playoff series in over a decade.
That's true. That part was with
he's since he was with the Lakers, and he's coached Kobe, he coached LeBron, so he's coached stars. But I think he's a really good coach. I think he's innovative. I think he's a really smart guy. I think players will like him. I think it's a good hire. But there's not a lot of playoff resume there.
I do as well, and I do hate that the Knicks did have a good offseason. I think Clarkson and Yabusele were both good signings, but that team can go 82-0, and I will still feel exactly how I feel right now. So we will see how that shakes out to continue going down. Orlando Magic at 51.5. Any immediate thoughts there?
They dealt with a ton of injuries last year that really hampered them. They still won a decent amount of games, given how many injuries to Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, of course, Jalen Suggs was out at the end of the year. Desmond Bane trade was awesome. I loved the Desmond Bane acquisition. I think this team is primed to make a serious run in the Eastern Conference. So I'd lean the over, but yeah, I'd probably lean the over.
Yeah, I do as well. The Eastern Conference is wide open. I do think Orlando is going to be a team that is going for it and should and have a real chance to make some noise. Then we go to a little bit of a drop as we go from 51 with the Magic to 47.5 with the Los Angeles Lakers, 47.5 with the Golden State Warriors, 46.5 with the Hawks, 45.5 with the Clippers there. Any thoughts on those 4 teams? The Lakers number feels very high to me.
Yeah, the Lakers number is always high, and the bettors will always lean the over just because it's Lakers, which is why the Lakers' future number is always higher than they should be, just because bettors love betting on the Lakers. The Lakers will go under that total, I think. Look, this is the team that didn't add a lot of depth. They just didn't. DeAndre Ayton is not an 82-game player, not because of injuries, because of his effort. He's not capable of putting in effort. And there's not going to be snow in Los Angeles during the winter, but I don't know. Somehow he's going to make some excuses where he can't show for certain games. Do you remember that? With that Blazers game,
ice storm.
There was an ice storm, and every other player could get there. He told the team he couldn't get to the game because of some ice. Every other player showed up for the game. So I don't know. He's going to manufacture some ice in his driveway when he's playing in LA. But I just don't like this Lakers team. And there's the question with LeBron and his future with the team, which is going to hang over this team's head all the time. So many distractions. I like the under. The Hawks. We've talked about the Hawks so many times. I think another team that won the offseason, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, how much they added with Kristaps Porzingis as a stretch big. I already thought this team was great because I think Jalen Johnson is an all-star level player. Trae Young made leaps as a playmaker. Dyson Daniels, most improved player in the league last year. Zachary Risachar was a pretty good as a rookie, and Keisha continued to develop. I love this Hawks team. So that's my favorite over. I haven't even looked at these. I'm just listening as you're reading off. Based on everything you've said, the Hawks are my favorite over because I think this team will be a top 4 seed in the East next year.
You think they win 50 games this year?
Yeah, I do.
I lean that way as well. So 46.5, the number for the Hawks. I agree with that. I think the Hawks are going to be very good this year. And we're going to find out this season if Trae Young can be that guy. I kind of lean towards that he can be. I've seen him do some pretty nightmarish things on big stages in the playoffs before. I think he finds that version of himself.
I heard someone say that this is a superstar audition for him, and he's eligible for an extension. So it'll be interesting how the Hawks handle that and handle his future. But he is eligible for an extension. This is a superstar audition for him. It just is. Like that, he has all the tools. This is the best team he's ever been surrounded by. And he's not an immature player anymore. He's improved his shot selection. He's improved his playmaking. He can make others better. So this is it for Trae Young. This is a really important season for his career.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be very interesting there to keep it rolling down the list. The Clippers at 45.5, the Bucks at 45.5, the Pistons at 45.5. The Celtics, I will leave it at those three. So 45.5 for the Clippers, Bucks, and Pistons. Any thoughts on those three?
I would lean over on the Pistons with Jane Ivey coming back. I think they're going to have a really good regular season again, even with no Malik Beasley in the picture. The Clippers one, just on that trade that just broke as we were live here, Norman Powell is on an expiring contract and he's going to turn 33, which I didn't realize when that trade initially broke. So it's kind of part of that is I don't think they want to sign him to an extension. I don't think they were going to pay him because he's going to command a lot of money from somewhere. So
I would have paid him.
The Clippers, yeah, but he's 33, so you have to pay him for a 4-year deal. And it's like,
what's James Harden making, man?
Okay, yeah, but he's on a 2-year deal, I believe. Does his timeline line up with Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, who only have a couple years left? So I think it's getting something back for Norman Powell because you're getting a asset back. John Collins is also an expiring deal. So the Jazz were trying to get something back for him. What the Jazz got back for an expiring contract in John Collins was Kevin Love, who won't play for the Jazz, will be shipped off somewhere or some buyout. Kyle Anderson, which maybe you can flip, but not for much, and a second-round pick. And how Shams tweeted that after was he was commending the Jazz for getting an asset as a second-round pick. A second-round pick is not an asset.
Well, the win for them is getting worse. That's still their intentions right now. They want AJ DeBansta. They want a top overall pick is what the goal of this.
I get it, but I don't think that's the right approach anymore. We saw tanking doesn't work. The Wizards and Jazz both had the worst record, and they had the 5th and 6th pick in the draft this year. I get there's not another options. I don't think tanking is the right approach right now.
Yeah, fair. But that is they're already down that rabbit hole. They've gone down that pathway already. So I get it from that perspective here. 3 more that are tied the same. 43.5 wins for the Boston Celtics, San Antonio Spurs, and Philadelphia 76ers. 3 very different teams here.
Wow, very different teams.
Yeah, I love the over for the Spurs. I do think that they clear that. I love the over for the Sixers. That I think is disrespectful. 43.5 wins. I still don't know. Still not quite sure what to make about the Celtics.
Yeah, honestly, I love the under for the Celtics.
Okay.
I think this team is going to struggle to make the playoffs. I mean, they were stripped to bare bones. I think this team is just really, I don't think Jaylen Brown is capable of carrying the type of workload that he's going to be asked to. Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard are going to have a ton of
Pritchard's going to put up numbers this year.
He is. And I love Pritchard, but how his usage is going to be absurdly high, where that's not really the type of player that he is when he's playing that many minutes. He's more of a bench 6-man type guy. I like the over on the Spurs and the Sixers as well. Like, I think the Sixers are going to have a pretty good regular season team. They prioritize getting younger and more athletic, and they did that. And they're going to be able to withstand Joel Embiid's injuries and his rest. And same thing with Paul George. I think they're going to be doing a much better job of that this year than last year, based on the improvements to the roster, getting Jared McCain back for a full season, healthy, hopefully, BG Edgecombe. So I think the over, I mean, look, the Sixers are the most unlucky, misfortunate team in the entire NBA, but I do like the over based on the roster on paper.
That is a number that, to me, I read as they do not believe Joel Embiid is playing much basketball this year. I will note that.
Yeah, and who would? Because he hasn't the last couple seasons.
Can't put up too much of a fight about this.
Yeah, let me ask you something. Who was the last Sixers rookie, first-round rookie, who actually lasted a full healthy season? I don't necessarily know the answer. I'm just thinking about it out loud. That rarely happens when a rookie goes through a full season healthy in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so the most recent one, I mean, Maxey did. He didn't play a ton, but he never got like injured like that.
Yeah, that's true. But okay, someone whose role will be actually Maxey's a good one. Someone whose role would be pretty high. I'm just saying because every rookie seems like they've got an injury. Simmons missed the entire year. We know with Embiid.
Don't put that evil on BJ. Don't put that evil on BJ.
Fultz. I'm not. Markelle Fultz, Jared McCain. Maxey was the only one that actually withstood it, but he didn't have that big of a role that year. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened in a long time. VJ, hopefully it does not happen to. It's just they're the unluckiest organization in the NBA.
I don't even like that being put out the universe. We're keeping it.
I was just thinking about it. It just came to my mind.
Couple more. I want to rip through the rest of these here. Memphis Grizzlies 40.5, Indiana Pacers 39.5, 38.5 for the Dallas Mavericks, which feels incredibly disrespectful to me. I love that over.
What was the Mavericks?
38.5. They're going to be a 500 team at least.
I think that's a very good line. I don't lean one way or the other. I would be a pass if we were doing this. I would be a pass to me. I think this team would be hover right around 500, like 39, 40 wins, but they could also go the over. Dude, Kyrie Irving isn't playing this entire season, like or until March maybe.
Cooper Flagg is. Anthony Davis is going to be there. Derek Lively.
Anthony Davis also dealt with a ton of injuries. Anthony Davis is not a healthy guy. Cooper Flagg is the only perimeter creator that they have. D'Angelo Russell is fine. He can put up numbers. He's not a winning player. I don't love this roster construction right now around Cooper Flagg, and I love Cooper Flagg. But without Kyrie Irving, until he's back, I don't think this team's going to be very good in an incredibly talented West.
I think they're at least a 500 basketball team. I think they squeak a couple more than that. You're right. Like, they're not going to be a contender until Kyrie's back, but I think they can very well hang in the mix. I think like that's going to be a tough team to face on a night-to-night basis with what they bring defensively. So I'm buying in on the 38.5 for the Mavericks there.
That Pacers number is really low, 39.5.
Yeah, I mean, no Halliburton, man. I don't. That's going to be a pass for me because their depth is obviously a huge strength of theirs. I have no clue how to view that on like an actual season long.
I mean, I could see them being a play-in team in the East, but I think a play-in team in the East will win 40 plus games because just actually that might not be true, but I think Rick Carlisle is a great coach, so I think he could somehow will them to like a 500 mark.
Yeah, which is, I mean, 39.5 is pretty fair there. I would pass on that just because don't know what to make of it, but I think that's pretty spot on as well. We drop a little bit here. Goes 36.5 for the Miami Heat, 32.5 for the Toronto Raptors, 32.5 for your New Orleans Pelicans, 32.5 for Chicago Bulls, and 32.5 for the Portland Trail Blazers. Any of those teams popped?
The one that jumped out to me was the Heat. Okay. I think this team is now with Norman Powell, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo. They might not be done. I don't know the exact numbers because we've been on this on live since this trade happened. But is Jonathan Kuminga still an option? I'm sure Bradley Beal isn't anymore. But this team may not be done. I think this Heat team, 36.5 wins. If Eric Spoelstra is your coach, you should be around a 500 team regardless. And I think this Heat team is better than they were last year. And you're not dealing with the Jimmy Butler saga going into the year. So I think I love that on over. Now that I'm thinking about it, Hawks and the Heat are my two favorite overs so far.
I will note they went 37-45 last year was their record. But you're right. The Butler thing did take up a lot of that and a little bit of a clean slate, and they still hit the over of it. So a little bit interesting there. The Pelicans, I don't know what to make of that number or their situation as a whole. It kind of a
Eric Queen will will them to 82-0.
Yeah, Willie, we'll see how that shakes out there. But to rattle off the final handful of these, Charlotte Hornets at 25.5, Brooklyn Nets at 21.5, Washington Wizards at 19.5, and Utah Jazz at 18.5. I love the Wizards over.
Really? Why? Sell me
I
on it.
think I think they're going to be competitive and sneaky in the mix in the Eastern Conference. They're still not going to be good, but they've built a foundation of defenders with Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, even Bub Carrington can compete on that end of the floor and is a bucket as well. I think Trey Johnson's the scoring punch that they really needed there, and like that team is looking more competent. They brought in CJ McCollum. I think we need to stop looking at the Wizards as like the little brother and start recognize that this is a team trending in the right direction. They're doing things the right way. Even like the Cam Whitmore trade, he may not work out, but that is great organizational practice to take a swing on a player like that. I think this team is trending in the right direction. I don't think they're going to be good, but I think they could get as high as like a 30-win team this year.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think the Wizards have a great front office. I think they're really smart in how they're handling their rebuild. And look, they've got a little unlucky with the lottery, but I kind of agree with that. I don't disagree. The team that stuck out for me was the Hornets. What was that number again?
25.5.
I love that over. I think this team is going to have a really good year. And I'm not a LaMelo Ball guy at all, but I think at some point this guy has to just learn how to play mature, fundamentally sound basketball where he makes his teammates better and contributes to winning.
Does he have to?
What?
Does he have to?
I think. I mean, maybe not. Honestly, maybe not. Maybe he just never will. But I do think that they've done a good job surrounding him with better pieces. Bring Trey Mann back. You still have Miles Bridges there. You still have Brandon Miller, who will be returning from injury, who I think is going to have a pretty good season. I still am a big Brandon Miller fan. You bring in Mason Plumlee during free agency, a nice veteran. Nice veteran center. Yeah, Kalkbrenner, another center to bring in. You get rid of Mark Williams, which I think is in some ways an addition by subtraction because he dealt with a ton of he's a good player, talented player, dealt with a ton of injuries in and out of the lineup all the time. So I never really trusted him. Who else? Oh, Con Knippel, who I think is going to have a great rookie season. I think will be in contention for Rookie of the Year. I think this Hornets team is going to compete for a play-in spot in the East. And they've been really bad last few years, but 25.5, I think they exceed 30 wins.
Yeah, I don't hate that whatsoever. I'll be a little bit of a Hornets believer this year. So you can talk me into that. Getting plus 100 for the over of 25.5 right now. So good little shout there. Any other final NBA thoughts before we wrap up here? I know we went on for a little extra as usual.
Even during the dry season, we always have stuff to talk about.
That's right.
Nothing now. I mean, this is the driest month of the NBA calendar, July and August, but we'll still find stuff to talk about. We'll probably get in some football stuff too. Keep rolling on Mondays.
Yeah, definitely. So we will be on top of things here on Picks and Roll. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Once again, these Sixers back in action for Summer League tonight. Me and Sam will have our eyes on this and plenty of more moves to still go down this NBA offseason. So we'll be back breaking it up every single week right here on Fox Sports The Gambler. Appreciate you guys for tapping in. Make sure to keep it locked on the dial. We'll be back talking to you next time right here on Fox Sports The Gambler.